Good morning, everyone. We will now hear David Chapman play Changes by David Bowie. Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. My name is Trisha Most. My pronouns are she, her, and I am one of the worship associates who works with others to present online worship services. Welcome to Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church in Adelphi, Maryland, located in the traditional land of the Piscataway people. Paint Branch is an intentionally welcoming community working to build diverse, multicultural, beloved community through our actions to dismantle racism and other oppressions. One of these actions is learning, and we strive as a congregation to continue to learn on our journey towards spiritual wholeness. Thank you for joining us this morning to hear personal stories of transformation. At Paint Branch UU Church, we welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all that you bring with you today. Instead of using chat throughout worship, I invite you now to greet each other. Please go to gallery view and see other worshipers, then unmute so you can say hello and wave.
Hello.
Hello.
Morning.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
Oh,
Happy.
Good morning.
Beautiful morning.
It is.
yes.
Good morning, Donald.
Morning, Marge.
All are invited to participate in next Sunday's in-gathering water communion by coming to Paint Branch parking lot today, rain or shine, from 1 to 3 p.m. for an outdoor, socially distanced photo opportunity. Maybe bring an umbrella just in case. Details can be found in the continuum and on the pbuuc.org website. And you will see that detailed information about our current COVID status is also available in the Continuum and on the church website. At this time, Abigail Hanley will call us into worship with an original poem she wrote specifically for this worship service. Abby's poem is called Becoming.
Hello. Becoming. The sun doesn't always shine, but it is glorious because the sun doesn't always shine. We are more, always more, than the darkest moment of our worst selves. This we know, but we are more still than the radiant inklings of our brightest dreams, more human and more sacred. Like the light glittering on the swift surface of a rioting river and the slow blue flow of the deep current running beneath, washing away rock and reed, petal and seed, and carrying new growth to old banks. Where the sun, glorious still, molds and nourishes, holds and protects, until life springs up from the cool chaos of the river. We are the waters, yes, and the life, glowing with bold hope, beginning. But know always, we are also the sun. And with every star in the galaxy, our light is eternal.
Good morning, Paint Branch. Change is hard, change is challenging, change is reminiscing, and change is enlightening. Change can bring transformations into new lifestyles and new beginnings. I experienced many challenges these past few months as I prepared to move from Greenbelt, my home of 37 years. There were decisions on what I keep, what I give away, and what gets tossed to the curb. But I have experienced a new life transformation. Moving to Riderwood Village has transformed me. I'm now an official, certified, and legal senior citizen. I view this move not as the last harbor of life, but as the new adventurous vocation for my days ahead. I light the chalice that I made in 2013. The chalice was fired outdoors in Baltimore in a wood-fired kiln. Please join me in reciting the unison chalice words. We light the chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind, the helping hands, the loving heart, and the radiant spirit. Encendamos este cáliz para celebrar el unitarismo universalismo. Esta es la iglesia de la mente abierta, de las manos amigas, del amor, del corazón y del espíritu radiante.
Good morning, my good people. I'm Chris McCann, your religious educator, and my pronouns are she and her. And to update everyone, especially those of you that were concerned, I tested negative for COVID. Hooray. We gather this morning with hearts that may be heavy in the midst of lives lost and displaced due to our ongoing climate crisis. the news of the Senate bill in Texas drastically limiting abortion care for people who need it, as well as the rest of the news cycle that may be leaving us with a variety of unsettling emotions. As we process through all of this, it may be difficult to remember that new beginnings are happening, and the evidence surrounds us. Lately, we've begun to feel the change of season, and we know that autumn is on the way. And depending on where you live, a new school year has begun or will begin soon. So let's take a moment to speak a blessing on all of our new beginnings. Bless your backpacks and laptop bags, your pencil cases and highlighters and calculators. May they help your growing knowledge. Bless your masks and hand sanitizers. May they help keep you safe. Bless your technology and internet connections, and may your Zoom meetings be brief and fruitful. Bless this beloved community and the ways we hold one another through hard news and new beginnings. May we continue to meet the moment and each other with compassion.
Thank you, Chris. I was transformed by two words I heard in a sermon in 2007. I think that these words may have played a role in ongoing transformation for our congregation. It was the spring of 2007 when our co-minister, Jocko ten Hove, delivered a sermon he called Solidarity. I associated solidarity with the Polish trade union issues of the 1980s, and the vague worship description really didn't clarify for me what the worship was going to be about. As I recall, when I heard Jocko begin to talk about community, I realized this was a sermon about a feeling of oneness, solidarity with a broad, diverse community. Up to that time, when I heard white UU speakers use the term white supremacy in the various UU workshops and conferences I attended, they never seemed to actually be challenging the mythology that white people, people who look like me, were superior to Black people, to Indigenous people, and to people of color. I was not hearing the problematic characteristics of our white supremacy culture be challenged. About halfway through his sermon, I heard Jocko put two words in a way that I had never heard them before. Instead of talking about white supremacy, Jocko talked about white privilege. And for me, it was like a bell went off in my head. The words white privilege finally gave me a way to label the unease I had always felt, the concern I had that many white people must either think that racial unfairness was okay, or that racial unfairness didn't really exist. In his sermon, Jocko posed a question about if Paint Branch UU Church had a racial problem. Since our church is located in Prince George's County, a minority-majority county, and our congregation was overwhelmingly white, I believed we clearly had a racial problem. I was the board chair at the time, and at our April board meeting, co-minister Barbara ten Hove mentioned the possibility of creating a 2 to 3 year racial justice task force. Well, rather than studying the racial problem, I wanted our congregation to do something. So in June, at the annual congregational meeting, I distributed a sign-up sheet asking people to indicate if they were interested in attending, leading, or planning activities to move our congregation forward toward anti-racism and multiculturalism. The overwhelmingly positive responses indicated substantial interest. In August, at Jocko's request, the Social Action Board chair convened a meeting to address racial questions and to consider forming a task force. Since I was going to be on vacation the week of the meeting, I prepared a written proposal offering to lead a covenant group on race. And I sent it to the social action chair to present at the August meeting. In September, I attended the second meeting, and I was pleased to see a good turnout of board members and lay leaders and others. During that September meeting, Carol Carter Walker and I were aware that the covenant group I suggested would only appeal to people who were willing to make a substantial commitment of time. We felt strongly that the congregation needed additional ways of entering into conversations about race. So we devised the idea of also having a book discussion and a drop-in film and discussion series. We posted a long roster of film titles with the dates they would be shown on Fridays and Sundays each week on all the church's entry door windows. Jocko asked Leo Jones to convene future meetings. Leo initiated an email discussion about what the name of this group should be. I wanted the word transformation included in whatever the final name became. Through email consensus, the chosen name was Diversity Anti-Racism Transformation Team, DARTT. DART continues to play a major transformational role in our congregation's ongoing efforts to create a culture of inclusion and to build beloved community. Over the years, the Spirit continues to move us to learn, to change, and to do. Please join me in singing hymn number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do. After the lyrics appear on your screen, you will notice that only one word changes in each verse. Please remain muted as we sing When the Spirit Says Do.
now? When I hear the word transformation, I think of all the changes that we had in the last year. We have changed from going to school in person to going in virtual school. And now, this fall, some people will go in person, but we don't want to go in person until we have our vaccines. So we won't be with our friends, and we won't be with our regular teachers. That's very different. My life has changed during the pandemic because we don't go out as public as often as we used to. We haven't been to stores or amusement parks since the beginning of the pandemic. What we've done is walk through the woods a lot more. Our mom is teaching us about native plants. At the beginning of the summer, we took a lot of online classes. They were a lot of fun. We learned origami and drawing and other classes. We've read a lot of books. Transformations makes me think of the life cycle of a frog, because a frog grows and changes. Just like I have grown and changed to adapt to online school. At first, all of us in online school were confused because we had to learn how things work and how to be in class in Zoom. But eventually we got the hang of things, and now online classes seem normal. Another thing that has changed are my interests. I like things I didn't care about in the beginning of quarantine. I used to read as much as we do now, but this summer we have read 15 books, over 3,000 minutes, and over 2,100 pages. It is also different because we see Mom and Dad all the time, that we are staying home to be safe. We wear masks all the time now. Before now, the only time we used to wear masks was on Halloween. They are the new normal. Some people choose not to wear a mask, but I don't think that's safe. When I can get my vaccine, I definitely will, because I don't want to get COVID. I'm glad we have the option to stay remote until I can get vaccinated, though I miss being in the building.
Good morning. My name is Reese Sneerden. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm genderqueer. I wasn't always this open about that. I was born Teresa, assigned female at birth, raised female, with all of the gender expectations that came with being labeled a girl. And it never fit. Yes, I like full skirts, but I also loved climbing trees and helping my dad do construction and all the repairs around the house. A few years ago, I finally accepted my gender identity and started the journey, social, medical, and now legal, to transform Teresa into Reese. Socially, this meant inviting my friends and family into my gender and new name starting in February of 2019. It meant conversations with them, spanning months and now years, about which name to use and when, as well as the pronouns and gender-neutral family terms to use now. It took me another year before I was comfortable coming out at work. I still vividly remember being utterly terrified February 14, 2020, as I hit send on the email coming out to my coworkers and submitted the internal blog post that talked about my gender and asked everyone to use my new name and pronouns. In August 2020, I had a good long conversation with my doctor about my gender dysphoria. When we decided to change my birth control to something that effectively got rid of my periods. That one medical change transformed my life. It helped me feel more comfortable in my body and gave me the courage to start changing how I presented myself into something that felt more, well, me. My work attire is now men's dress pants, in part because of, well, functional pockets.
Yes.
and button downs in various prints and colors. When I changed positions at work in November 2020, I realized that coming out or inviting people into my gender will be a permanent part of my life now. During the weeks-long process of teaching people not to use Teresa, I realized I wasn't happy having to constantly remind people. When I started this process, I thought I would never legally change my name or gender marker because it's honestly a bloody nightmare. But now, Teresa is no longer who I am. And I'm kind of done flinching when people use that old name. So as a birthday present to myself, in February 2022, I am submitting the court paperwork to legally change my name and gender marker. And sometime 6 to 9, 12 months later, hopefully before the end of 2022, I will finally be able to change that everywhere else and won't have to hear the old name anymore. This is an ongoing transformation for me. And I'm realizing I will forever be coming out to new people in my personal and professional life because most people assume wrongly that I'm female. I've also had to set some hard boundaries around respectful behavior. I now insist everyone uses my personal name, my pronouns and honorifics, and gender neutral terms. And I now quickly remind people who forget. I fully admit there's an ongoing emotional and mental cost to reinforcing those boundaries, but it's a much lower cost than the hurt of being misgendered. Hearing exclusive language, you guys, ladies and gentlemen, it still hurts. And I'm not sure that will ever stop. But as part of this transformation, I'm learning when and how to ask for more inclusive behavior. What I have wanted and needed to be fully myself has changed as time passes. And I anticipate it will continue to change as I grow into my genderqueer self and learn to fully love myself as race. Now, please join us in singing hymn 1014, Answering the Call of Love.
There's an old joke. They say the only things you can be sure of happening are death and taxes. Really, though, it's change that is the constant of our universe. She changes everything she touches. Everything she touches changes. This is a chant reflecting that fundamental truth. My name is Penny Hughes, and I'm a pagan UU. A common practice in the pagan world is to adopt a name that carries a spiritual connotation called a craft name. My craft name for many years was She Changes. This name was in recognition of all the transformation that I had been through and a hope for all that I could be. It was a name with a verb, active and acknowledging a fundamental reality and attunement with the world. So maybe it's not surprising that I recently became a social worker. We aspire to be agents of transformation. One of the things that we study in social work school is how change happens. Specifically, we want to know, how does a person go from being in a situation having a detrimental impact on their life to successfully coping or even resolving a situation? I will outline some of the ingredients that I understand to be essential for change and give an example of the change process based on my experience becoming a social worker. So here's our recipe. It starts with discomfort. When my family returned to the DC area suddenly after living in Ghana, I needed to find work. I had difficulty finding something that supported my family adequately. And beyond our practical needs, I was struggling to find meaningful work. I have done many jobs and I've always managed to find something to like about them, but that I had not often found work that I found personally meaningful. Let's add some stability. I realized that my family would be in DC for a while, and with my children in school, I had some time to explore my options. Add intent to change. I wanted to find a way to support my family that was suited to my personalities, skills, and life experience. Add hope and curiosity. Some people call this a learner's mind. I explored possibilities by taking several online tests intended to help you figure out what job might be a good match for your skills and personality. I was contemplating social work as a possibility, and then I ran across Tish Hall, a former Paint Branch member at the dollar store. She said she was considering going to school for social work and gave me the contact information for an informational session on a graduate program. Attending that session made me realize that this path might just be feasible. Mix in relationships. We are people, social animals, and we transform in the context of relationship with others. In my case, the emotional support from Tish, who also ended up in the program, and the rest of my social work class, as well as practical support from my husband, Joe, were tremendous contributors to my success. Sprinkle in some rewards for your hard work. We need to transform at a pace that we can handle, and we need our rewards, our efforts to be rewarded. All along the path, I was rewarded for my efforts. As a student, I worked for the pleasure of learning, and my progress was measured by grades. In my internship, I was rewarded by seeing clients change and by positive feedback from my peers. And then pop it into the oven of time. I'm still in the process of becoming a social worker. Even though I have a license and a job now, I continue to learn and refine my skills. It's the kind of work that's never done, but the pace can vary. In the beginning, it was very fast, and now it's a little slower. I remain curious about what's happening with my clients and ways that I can support them better. I'm working with that process of change in a professional way now, and I'm sure I'll find more ingredients, but I feel reasonably comfortable that I have a good basic recipe. Discomfort, stability, intent, a learner's mind, relationship, rewarded work, and time. And also, I have a new craft name. Reflecting my aspiration to be skilled in this work, my new name is Deft.
Thank you, Deft. Good morning. My name is Lynn Lewison, and I'm a pastoral care associate here at Paint Branch. Our role is to offer presence and support to those in the congregation who may be going through some kind of difficulty. This is a very challenging time for all of us. And I remind you that Reverend Ann is available for pastoral counseling, and we are available to listen and support. Our contact information is in the chat. As we gather in community, we carry life's hurts and its great joys. Sometimes the sharing in community of our significant life experiences and milestones can help strengthen the bonds between us. Throughout the pandemic, the chat feature on Zoom has facilitated our sharing. Starting this week, we introduced an additional way to share joys and sorrows. If you would like to have your joy or sorrow read aloud during the service, you can now submit it by email using the address joys-sorrow@pbuuc. Again, that's joys-sorrows@pbuuc. If you forget, it's posted and continued. Please bear in mind that these spoken announcements will be part of our recorded church service, which is posted publicly on YouTube. Therefore, we will use first names only during the sharing. Please submit your messages by noon on the Friday prior to the service. Okay. 2 joys were submitted this week for sharing. Our church mom, Marie, shares that she is still feeling the joy of her 2 sons visiting her last month. One from California and the other from Georgia. They'd been apart for a very long time. She also shares she has a great joy at the birth of her first great-grandchild, Rowan B. The chat is still available if that's your preferred mode of sharing. And I invite you now to share your joys and sorrows in the chat during the playing of the intonation. For our intonation music, David Chapman will play In My Life by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Thank you, David. Now let us pause to acknowledge all that has been shared, as well as all those joys and sorrows that remain unshared and yet are on our minds. In this quiet time, may our hearts open to hope and healing. May our minds open to hope and possibility. May we hold these and one another in love and kindness, so that this congregation may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead.
In community, we derive strength from each other as we face transitions in our lives. We encourage each other as we adjust to changes, and we continue to learn from challenges en route to transformation. With gratitude for each other and for the community we create together, we will now receive the offering. You can make an online donation through Breeze or by text as indicated in the chat bar, or you can mail donations to the church office. Our church depends upon the financial support of our members and friends. Thank you so much for your generosity to Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church. Now we will hear David Chapman play I Will Survive by Dino Fakaris and Freddie Perrin. David, thank you so much for your music today. Change can be challenging and enlightening. Sometimes two words can lead to transformation. When our lives change, we learn to do things differently. We grow and adapt. Our transformations can be ongoing. Really, change is the constant in our universe. And now we will remain muted as we sing Fuente d'Amor, Spirit of Life.
Thank you for being here for our spiritual time together. May you go in peace, kindness, and love from this day forward.
If we were meeting in person, I would invite you now into the lobby for coffee and conversation. Instead, you will receive a message on your screen inviting you to join a breakout room to converse with other worshipers. I wish you all courage in your transitions and positive experiences in your transformations.